Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is from the incredible mind of Erutious over on Reddit No Sleep. And as ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid crew. And so, with that aside, let's get into tonight's story. Entitled Ole One Ear. Let's get straight into that. I was out having a smoke behind the dorm when one of the orderlies came up and asked if I had a spare one. I'm not one of those hard-ass COs. Hell, I know guys who would have locked him up just for asking, but I'm not about making more work for myself. I'm not quite a career man, but I'm not some go-nowhere guy either. I'm solidly middle of the road, and I take my opportunities as they come. And it's led me to have rapport with the guys who call Strikeview their home. And these guys can spot us softly from a mile away, and it usually leads them to telling me things. Things like where the knives are that might be meant for them, where the drugs are at that they might get hemmed up over, which one of their enemies is cooking buck, and sometimes stories about their past. And tonight was one of those times. I scoffed at him, telling him that I could lose my job for that, and that's when he offered me a deal. Well, what if I told you a story? Something really good, like how I got 25 years over a fucking cat. Well, that piqued my interest, and I fished a cigarette out and held it up. Story first, and if it's any good, then cigarette. He nodded and started talking. The day the cat came up to me, I felt like a fucking rock star. I've only recently arrived at Strikeview, maybe 6 months ago, when I was prepared to make it my home for the next 5 years. I was never a violent guy. I'm a pacifist by nature, but real jobs never appealed to me. 9 to 5 grind, suit and tie, 401k. No thanks, man. I had known Frankie for years, and he was cool, so when he offered me a chance to be a product distribution agent, I was all for it, and that was what we called it in the neighborhood. Frankie was never a dopehead or a drug pusher. He was a pharmaceutical specialist, and we were his product distribution agents. Well, the cops almost seemed to find that amusing when I told them how it worked after they picked me up. Apparently, I had been carrying enough drugs to put me away for a long time, but the judge took it easy on me, since it was technically my first offense. He gave 5 years, 3 with good behavior, and made it clear that I should consider myself lucky. Lucky to be going to prison? Fat chance of that. But I went and decided to do my time and maybe learn how to not get caught the next time. I saw Ole One Ear on my first day here. He's that big orange cat that wanders around the compound. I'm sure you've seen him. The inmates feed him, the guards feed him. Hell, I've even seen the warden nod to him. The cat basically runs this place, and he damn well knows it too. And the trade-off is that he's feral as hell. No one gets close to Ole One Ear, or they get scratched, or he runs off. Except for me. I was coming out of the chow hall with a tuna sandwich. It was lunch for that day along with some other stuff, when Officer Moore stepped up for a random frisk and search. He found my sandwich. I wasn't really trying to hide it. He dropped it on the ground along with some rubber bands and pocket garbage. He said the food was to be eaten in the chow hall. When I said chow was over and they were telling us to leave, and he said that that wasn't his problem, and I asked him please if I could just take it with me. I knew what he was going to do before he did it. He said sure, or slick like he does, and then stepped on my sandwich. Oops, he said, like a fucking cartoon character, and then just walked off like nothing had happened. I picked it up, looking at the boot print on it, and decided that it was only good for one thing now. Ole One Ear would have a great lunch today. And so I go over to the queue-up line and see him there, standing near the fence as the guys throw food at him. He's looking at the bread and cheese and the other stuff, and I pinch some sandwich off and throw it to him. He sniffs and bats the bread off, munching on the tuna, before looking up to see if there was more. I toss him some more, and he eats it. The other inmates are looking at me now, asking for some too so they can throw it, but I told them no. This was my sandwich and I was going to feed this cat. I had started to notice that Old One Ear was coming a little closer every time I threw some sandwich. Closer and closer as the sandwich got smaller and smaller. And finally, as the last piece fell in front of me, he was rubbing my leg and eating the sandwich happily. The cat looked up at me and I extended my hand. He rubbed his head against it, accepting my attention. And at that moment, I felt like a damn rock star. No one had ever managed to get close enough to touch Old One Ear. Well, he would hiss or spit at anyone who got close to him, until now. When the officer yelled for us to return to our dorm, Old One Ear followed me, rubbing my leg and twisting between my feet. The other inmates didn't know what to make of it, and when one of them tried to reach down and pet him, Old One Ear yowled and scratched his hand. The big lug just pawed his bleeding fingers away, and the others looked at me with a mixture of fear and awe. And when I got back to my dorm, the cat followed me inside, hopping up onto my bunk and curling up on my pillow. I just sat towards the end of the bunk, looking at him like I couldn't quite believe he was real. And most of the cats in the compound looked mangy, ill-treated or had signs of disease. Old One Ear had none of these. Other than the missing ear, he was perfect. His coat was short but soft, and when he flopped down on my lap, I was surprised to find that he lacked the crunchy fur that most outside cats seem to have. I spent the afternoon on that first day absent-mindedly petting him, listening to him rumble like a small engine in my lap as the other inmates just watched from a safe distance. When Sergeant Demolo came out to count later, I assumed there would be a problem. And Demolo is the brusque and often blustery nighttime sergeant who runs my dorm, and I could see his bushy eyebrows lifting when he saw the cat. I had seen him take the bugs and rats that inmates sometimes keep as pets, and even taken an inmate's bird once after he caught him raising them in the rec shed. He had just opened his mouth to ask me what the hell I thought I was doing, but Old One Ear rolled over and fixed him with a withering look. The guard stopped in his tracks, turned to stone, as he stuttered out a question. Is that Old One Ear? I nodded, my hand still absent-mindedly stroking the cat. Demolo nodded slowly, his head bobbing like a sleepwalker. Then he started on his way again as he shakily counted the others. After that, Old One Ear and I were friends, and he slept at the foot of my bed every night. Well, for the next month, at least. Old One Ear was never far from my side during those days. The cat followed me everywhere, and no one seemed to stop him. He ate chow with me in the chow hall, he walked the track with me on the rec yard, and he sat next to me in the library, and he walked the compound with me wherever I went. Even the most grizzlied lifer didn't seem to want to get in my way, and a couple of the new guys who tried were either run off by Old One Ear or deterred by other inmates. The cat seemed to have an almost talismanic effect on the older inmates, and it's only afterwards that I realized that it was fear and no respect that stopped them. You see, the old-timers never feed Old One Ear. The young guys like me who haven't been here very long might feed him, but the old-timers do their best to ignore him. Well, they tried to warn me about him too, in their own way. The notes started appearing after Old One Ear had been with me for about a week. I had noticed some of the lifers and the old-timers watching me, and thought that they were impressed or jealous. The young guys I hung out with were certainly jealous. They all wanted to try and get a compound cat of their own, but the female cats hid the kittens very well, and the other cats were downright feral. And to my knowledge, at the time at least, I was the only person to befriend one of the cats, suddenly the first to befriend Old One Ear. Or so I thought. The note was tucked under my pillow, and I started to throw it away. Notes under your pillow are usually best ignored unless you were looking to be a drug mule or someone's girlfriend. I had so far managed to avoid the attention of the gangs and the affections of the inmates who engaged in that sort of courtship, but what was written on the note made me stop before tossing it. And it read, "Don't let the cat see this." Old One Ear meowed, looking at the note questioningly, and I scoffed and told him it was nothing. I crumpled it up and took it to the trash can, slipping it in my pocket instead so I could read it later. I told the cat I was going to the bathroom, and one place he seemed unwilling to follow me, and he meowed and returned to my bunk. That cat, he was so human sometimes that I didn't think to question it. I hadn't had to deal with a pet in quite some time, and I guess I have forgotten how very unhuman they sometimes are. I don't know it was short, but it definitely gave me the chills. You don't know me, and I won't name myself here, just in case that cat is reading over your shoulder. You need to get rid of that animal, and fast. He ain't no normal cat. He picks people sometimes, random people, and never anything someone you'd expect. And then something happens to them. They get hemmed up with drugs, or they get found with a weapon, or they go off and kill themselves. And that cat is the only constant. I can't prove that he's responsible, but he seems to mark them for strangeness. Destroy this letter after you read it, and if you want more stories, come find me at the card table at the rec yard without your furry friend. Solitaire. I read the note a few times before peeking around the store to see if the cat was anywhere around, and from the cubicle I could see him sitting on my bunk, his amber eyes looking at me expectantly. When I flushed the note, I couldn't tell you why. It certainly wasn't because I believed the writer, but it was better to be safe than sorry in here. I pulled my pants up and returned to my furry friend, Ole One Ear rubbing against me as it came within proximity. And for the next couple of weeks, I thought about that note and thought about what it could mean. I didn't believe it, but what if it was true? Strikeview is such a strange place sometimes that you really can't say for certain that something is or isn't here. You got guys who claim that tower the warden lives in used to be full of rats and now he uses them as his spies. You got other guys who say the woods are guarded by these big shadow hounds and that one of them lives in confinement in the quarantine wing. There's talk about ghosts and monsters in the grass that we don't walk on, and how the warden's eyes glow sometimes if you pay attention. I had never seen any of this, but living inside Strikeview, it makes you wonder if any of it is true or not. And so, one day I woke up to find Ole One Ear gone. He did that sometimes, disappearing off to hunt or whatever it is that cats do, away from people. I got up and started getting ready for my day. When the officers started calling for rec, he still hadn't come back. I went out to rec with my dorm, feeling the briskness of the February morning through my winter coat. I decided to go walk around the track. On my third rotation, I saw the guy playing cards by himself. Us young guys called him Shrek because he was huge and kind of lumpy looking, but I knew his name was Coldwell, just like I knew well enough not to call him Shrek within his hearing. He was sitting at a card table, playing solitaire, looking like someone trying to use furniture for a kid. The folding chair he was sitting in looked ready to snap, and despite myself, I found I was walking over to talk to him. Coldwell looked up, his face disinterested, but his eyes seeming to sparkle. I had wondered if you would come talk to me before it's too late. I sat down across from him, looking around as if expecting my furry shadow to wander up about then. I've been doing a lot of thinking about your note, and I'm curious to know what it means. What were you talking about? Coldwell turned the card from the deck, held in his thick mahogany hand. I've been here a real long time, and in that time I've seen that cat choose people. Sometimes they get locked up for stuff. Sometimes they end up dead. Sometimes they kill themselves, but it always starts with the cat. But why? I asked. What's it got to do with the cat? From the time I came through those gates till now, the only two constants in this place, the warden and Ole One Ear. In all my time here, I've never seen either of them get any older. Never looked any different than he first did on the first day I'd seen him. Compound cats are a dime a dozen, but they die by the dozens too. Ole One Ear is the exception. Don't trust that cat. Not if you have any sense. Well, they started calling for the end of rec then, and Coldwell got ponderously to his feet and went to line up with the rest of them. I thought about what he'd said on the way back to the dorm. Coldwell couldn't be right. Cats didn't live more than 20 years, and compound cats are usually lucky to get 5, given the environment they live in. For Ole One Ear to be that old, he would have to be some kind of super cat. No, I thought to myself. Coldwell must be wrong. There's no way that could be right. He was waiting for me on my bed when I got back, his tail held high and a wrapped snack cake in his mouth. That was the start of Old One Ear's little gifts. I never knew where he got them from, but for the next 2 weeks he would show up sometimes with little presents. He brought me snack cakes, soup packs, and even a pack of cigarettes. No one ever reported any of these things missing. I never got in trouble for having them. No One Ear never brought me any of the other gifts that cats usually bring their masters. I never found any dead birds or mice on my pillow. And as we smoked cigarettes that night, hiding out behind food service, while we were supposed to be working, my friend spoke jealously about how they wished they had a pet to bring them cool things. They wouldn't think so highly of him after that night, though. When the alarm went off, the sirens waking everyone up, we all rolled out of bed and into our blue. This sort of thing happened sometimes, usually when something bad had happened, and as the guards directed us outside, I grabbed my coat and heard something metal hit the ground. I was going to ignore it. I had probably knocked something off the nightstand, but when the sleeve of my jacket was wet, I turned to see what it was. And laying next to my bunk was a shank. A shank covered in blood. I scooped it up and stuck it in my pocket. What the hell was this? Why was there a blood shank in my coat? I looked at the sleeve and decided that it wasn't too badly stained. I tucked my hands in my jacket pockets and saw that it wouldn't show as long as I kept them there. They would probably take us to the yard so they could remove us one dorm at a time while they searched. If we decided to make something of it, the rec yard was basically one big oval that they could turn into a killing field. And we all knew it. No, my best bet would be to hope that they didn't search us before we got there, so I could hide this stuff. "Hey!" someone shouted, and I turned to look at him as I tried to get myself right. "You deaf? Get your ass to the rec yard!" I was one of the guards, and I stuck my hands in my pocket and hovered out to the brisk walk. They had indeed herded us onto the rec yard, and as the gates closed, the rumour mill began. "I heard it was Clarence in F Dorm. I heard someone stabbed him over 20 times. Or they say whoever killed him took his hands. There's no way. There's no camera footage from that wing. They don't even know who did it. They just know what happened before lunch, and this punky just thought to roll him over." As the masses chattered, I moved up next to my friend CJ and asked if he'd keep a lookout for me. "Sure, but what's going on? You trying to catch a smoke?" And I showed him the knife, and his eyes got real big. "Holy shit, are you the..." And I shushed him, his shrill voice making some people turn to look at us. "No, but someone is trying to frame me for it. I woke up with this shank in my jacket, and I need to get rid of it. Keep a lookout so I can bury it." CJ said he would, and I moved around by the garden shed. The soil was soft there, and I figured it would be a while before anyone found it. I used the shank to slice my name off the coat tag, and then set to digging a hole. The shovels were locked up for the night, but the soil was extremely soft, and my hands were more than up to the challenge. And I expected to be caught any second, the hole becoming deeper and deeper as I worked. I had dug 6 inches before stopping, looking at the hole and deciding that another 6 inches might be best. Before I knew it, I was crouched over a small 2-foot hole, and I wrapped the jacket around the knife before dropping it in. I expected to be caught as I pushed the dirt back in, but still, no one raised an alarm. I shivered when I went back to join CJ, and he gave me a questioning thumbs up that I returned. I was cold, but I believed I had wriggled out from under the frame job someone was trying to put on me. At least until they called my name. But the captain, a short and stocky fellow we all just called Cap or Sir, came to the gate with about 4 bulky officers. Demolo was amongst them. They wanted to talk about something they'd found on my rack, and they made it clear that they weren't asking for my cooperation, and I went meekly enough. It didn't have anything on me. Even if they dug up that knife, my prints wouldn't be the only set on it. And that jacket didn't even have my name on it anymore. It could be any of the blue canvas coats we use around here. They cuffed me and took me back to my dorm, the other inmates silent as the grave. When we arrived, I saw that the dorm was trashed. Officers are never really that neat and tidy when they're looking for things, and the aftermath of a raid is usually spent cleaning everything back up. My bunk was towards the back and the officers were trying to look casual, but it was clear they expected trouble as they moved to let the captain and his entourage take me there. I didn't get it. What the hell had they found? Surely they couldn't have found anything else. And on my bunk was Ole One Ear. He was lying on top of a leaking hand, sitting in the middle of my bed, purring happily. I had been so worried about getting rid of the knife that the disappearance of the cat had gone unnoticed. It seemed weird now that he hadn't been there. He had been by my side every day for the past month. Why hadn't I noticed? Why hadn't I looked for him? "This your cat?" asked the captain, the hand under my arm suddenly tightening, like they thought I might lunge at him. "Yes, sir," I said. "And is this your bunk?" the captain asked. "Yes, sir," but he didn't care, and it was straight to confinement after that. I wouldn't learn until DR court, but apparently the cameras in all the dorms had been down all day. They had gotten them back on at 7:30 a.m. the next morning, and not a bit of footage from the previous day could be found. At the time of the murder, I was supposed to be on my dorm, but no one seemed able to confirm this. They could confirm that I was at work from 14:30 p.m. till 18:45 p.m., but since the murder had gone down around lunch, that didn't clear me of anything. I was held in confinement pending an actual trial, and the court determined that I was guilty. My public defender did little to dissuade them, and it came down to my word against the evidence. I don't know who told them where I'd hidden the jacket, but they found it and the knife and used that against me too. Given that I never saw CJ again, I assume he was the one who squealed on me. To my surprise, I was not transferred out of Strikeview. Most guys who commit a murder in prison are sent off, but I was thrown into the same dorm the murder had happened in. And so my custody level shoot way up. I couldn't work in a kitchen anymore. I couldn't participate in the programs I had once been part of. And if it weren't for you guys taking volunteers for orderlies, I'd probably be one of those day room zombies you always see watching TV or waiting for chow. I blew out a deep breath, the inmate holding out his hand for a cigarette. "One more question," I said before I passed it over. "How do you know it was the cat that nailed you?" He scoffed. "'Cause the warden told me." I blinked. "He told you the cat had set you up?" The inmate nodded. I was sitting in the transport cell as I waited to go to court when I heard a cat meowing from outside the bars. It was Ole One Ear standing outside the bars. I hadn't seen him since the day they'd taken me to confinement, but when I went to pet him, he hissed and backed away. I just sat there stunned. Had I offended a cat as well? "A tough break," said a voice, and the cat turned and batted his head against the familiar set of suit pants. The warden was attached to them, as he usually was, and when he bent down to get the cat, it came willingly into his arms. "You should always keep the first rule of prison firmly in your mind, though. Be careful who you trust and be certain they trust you." He left then, and though I've seen Ole One Ear again since, I suppose my usefulness to him was up. I gave him the cigarette then, and he smoked it with a look of pure bliss stamped across his face. Wow. Suddenly another one. Wow. What a creepy sort of paranormal story there for the incredible mind of Erutious from over on Reddit, No Sleep. Big thank you, Erutious, for allowing me to narrate your story on the show. Very refreshing and different twist on things, and I look forward to more of your work in the future. Well, guys and girls as ever, you know the drill. Please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR? and DMT's Cryptid crew. If you're an aspiring writer, want to get in touch with me at the contact email, which is as on screen. Contact thedeadone@gmail.com. I really look forward to hearing from you. I hope you all had a fantastic weekend with friends or family, good food and good drink, and you're feeling fit and focused. But above all, guys, remember, be safe, not sorry.